You are, right now, about 60% salt water wearing a shirt. So let's actually drain them. All of them. Every ocean. Not evaporated, just gone. Let's see what's actually down there. Most people picture a flat blue bowl. It is nothing like a bowl. The seafloor has bigger mountains than any continent you've stood on. It has canyons deeper than anything carved by any river on land. This used to be the coastline, not anymore. First, the continental shelf. A shallow apron ringing every landmass. It's barely underwater. Geologically, it's just more continent. Drain the water and the shelf barely changes. It's already basically land. Then the ground disappears. That steep edge is called the continental slope. This is where the actual ocean floor begins, and it drops fast. Past the slope, most of the seafloor is something called an abyssal plain. It is flatter than any desert, flatter than any plain you know. It covers more of this planet's surface than every continent combined. Standing alone in the middle of it all, absolutely tiny. Scattered across it are mountains that never broke the surface. Seamounts. There are more of these underwater volcanoes than volcanoes on every continent. Drained, they'd just be mountains. Thousands of them, nobody named. Now the part everyone actually wants, the deepest point on Earth. The Mariana Trench. Deeper than Everest is tall if you flipped it in. Almost 11,000 meters down, sunlight never once reaches the bottom. The trench is drained, and there's still a club shaking with nothing left to hit. Down there, pressure alone would have crushed a submarine like a can. Drain the water, and that pressure just vanishes. The crush stops. But something did live at that pressure. Fish built entirely for it. No pressure holding them together, those bodies would simply fall apart. You would kill every single organism adapted to that specific darkness. That's just one trench. Now multiply that by every ocean on the planet. Let's talk about why the water was salty in the first place. Rain falls on rock. Rain is slightly acidic. Rock slowly dissolves. Rivers have been hauling dissolved minerals into the sea for billions of years. Water evaporates back into rain. The salt stays behind. It just builds up. The ocean has been concentrating salt for something like 3 billion years. Drain the ocean, and that salt does not evaporate with the water. It stays. You'd be left standing on a salt flat bigger than every desert combined. And here's the part that connects back to you. You are basically diluted seawater. Your blood plasma runs on sodium, chloride, and potassium, the same 3 ions. Not a coincidence. Life started in that water and never fully left it. Every cell in your body still lives bathed in something like seawater. Something's not right about this arm, and that's a little disturbing. So, draining the ocean is, in a strange way, draining a diluted version of you. That is not a metaphor, it is just chemistry. Let's keep going down. 95% of the ocean has never been mapped in detail. We have better maps of the surface of Mars than of our own seafloor, which means draining the oceans would be the greatest reveal in human history. We would finally see every shipwreck ever lost at sea all at once. Every one of these wrecks tells the same story, something ignored, one storm too many. We'd also see things that should never see daylight again. Hydrothermal vents, cracks in the crust spewing water hot enough to melt lead. Whole ecosystems down there run on chemicals, not sunlight, not photosynthesis at all. Some scientists think life itself may have started at vents just like these. Drain the ocean, and those vents keep erupting into open air. Nothing stops them. That superheated mineral spray would start filling the air almost immediately, which is a good moment to admit the ocean was never just water sitting still. It has been running a global conveyor belt of heat for longer than we've existed. That conveyor belt moves heat from the equator toward the poles constantly. Take away the ocean, and you take away the planet's entire thermostat. Coastal regions would swing to brutal extremes almost immediately. Places that were mild because of nearby water would become nearly unlivable. Somehow, it's freezing and sweltering in the exact same room. That is not a joke. That is what a planet without oceanic buffering does. Now think about rain. Almost all of it starts as evaporated ocean water. No ocean, no evaporation, no clouds. The water cycle just stops. Within weeks, most of the continents would start drying out completely. Rivers would slow, then stop. Lakes would shrink to puddles, then vanish. Not a drop of water left here, just cracked dirt and a river that used to be. This is the part where the story stops being about fish and starts being about you. Every crop on Earth depends on rainfall that starts as ocean evaporation. No ocean, no rain, no crops. It really is that direct chain. You, a self-important ape who built cities, still eat because rain falls on time. Now let's talk about the air you're breathing. It has ocean written all over it. Somewhere around half of the oxygen you breathe comes from ocean phytoplankton. Not the rainforest, not trees, microscopic drifting plants in seawater. Drain the ocean, kill the plankton, and you cut your own oxygen supply in half. Wait, this changes everything, and there's no time to waste. This is not an exaggeration for effect. This is just what phytoplankton do. They outproduce every rainforest on Earth combined, quietly, underwater, unseen. So before you even think about the fish, the ocean was already keeping you alive. Now let's get to the animals, starting with the biggest ones alive. Whales evolved from land animals that walked back into the water. That's real. About 50 million years ago, their ancestor looked more like a small deer. Over millions of years, its legs shrank, its nose migrated to the top of its head. That land ancestor's descendants never left the water again, until now. A whale's own body weight, unsupported by water, would collapse its organs. Water was doing structural work for them their whole lives. Support, not just home. Poor thing never stood a chance, and somehow that's the saddest part of all. Every whale, dolphin, and porpoise on the planet would meet the same fate. Every coral reef on Earth gone within hours. Coral cannot survive dry air. Reefs cover barely a fraction of the ocean floor, but hold a quarter of its species. That diversity depends entirely on one thin, warm, sunlit layer of water. Take the water away, and that layer and everything living in it simply stops existing. Every branch here is bleached white, and this one alone won't survive another summer. Now think bigger than any single animal. Think about the fish you actually eat. Roughly 3 billion people rely on seafood as a primary protein source. Drain the ocean, and that protein source is gone in a single afternoon. That is a famine larger than any famine in recorded human history immediately. Nothing on the plate yet, but the day already feels like it needs a decision. This is where the fish out of water joke stops being a joke. It's literal now. But the biggest cost of all isn't food or oxygen. It's what holds the sky up. Water vapor is a greenhouse gas. The ocean is the planet's biggest reservoir of it. Drain the ocean and you drain the humidity that keeps the whole atmosphere in balance. No evaporation means no clouds. No clouds means no rain anywhere, ever again. Not a single cloud, not a drop of rain, and something about that feels deeply wrong. Every river on Earth is fed by rain that started as ocean water. Cut the source, and every river on the planet runs dry within years. No rivers means no fresh water, not for you, not for a single crop on Earth. You were worried about losing seafood. You should have been worried about losing water. Now add the temperature swing. Oceans are Earth's thermostat, storing heat all day. Without that thermal mass, days would scorch and nights would freeze everywhere, immediately. 1 second, this scrap of fur feels life-saving. The next, it's unbearably hot. Make up your mind weather. Coastal cities would swing 40 degrees in a day. Inland deserts would swing worse. This is not weather anymore. This is a planet with its climate control ripped out. Now think about the weight you just removed. The ocean is not just water, it's mass. 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of it, pressing down on the crust below. Remove that weight, and the seafloor does something you would not expect. It rises. Geologists call it isostatic rebound. The crust floats back up when the load lifts. We've watched this happen before. Scandinavia is still rising from the last ice age. Now imagine that rebound happening under an entire ocean basin, all at once, everywhere. That kind of pressure change does not settle quietly. It breaks things. Mid-ocean ridges already produce earthquakes constantly. Now strip away the water pinning them down. You'd get earthquakes on a scale coastal cities have never had to plan for. Brace in the doorway, club raised as the ground shakes underfoot. And under all that stress, volcanoes that have been dormant for centuries wake up. Decompression melting. Less weight on the mantle means rock melts that used to stay solid. Thousands of new volcanoes everywhere the seafloor used to hold the pressure down. That much volcanic ash would blacken the sky you just spent scenes losing your rain to. Ash drifts down from a choked sky, settling like grey snow on an outstretched hand. So now stack it up. No rain, no rivers, no stable temperature, no solid ground. And we haven't even gotten to the sky itself, the actual air above your head. Phytoplankton make more than half the oxygen you breathe, every breath, every day. You already learned that. Now here's the part that actually kills you faster. The ocean also absorbs a quarter of all the carbon dioxide humans produce yearly. Drain the sink, and that carbon dioxide has nowhere left to go but up. Carbon dioxide levels would spike past anything in the last several million years. That traps heat, which makes the temperature swings you saw earlier even more violent. Every system you've heard about so far was quietly holding up every other one. Pull the ocean out and the gears don't slow down. They seize completely. Time to sit on a dry rock and admit defeat, club and all. Here's the strange part. None of this required the water to actually disappear from Earth. It just had to leave the one place life spent 4 billion years adapting to. That's the actual lesson hiding inside this ridiculous question you clicked on. You don't need to remove a planet to end it. You just need to remove one system. Everything else was just built assuming that system would always be there. Pull it, and everything stacked on top of it comes down at once. That's not a special property of oceans. That's how every ecosystem on Earth actually works. You live inside a machine with no spare parts. Every piece is load-bearing. We just happen to be standing on the one part we've been quietly stressing for decades. You do not need to drain the ocean to feel this. Warm it a few degrees. Coral bleaches. Fish migrate. Storms get stronger. The thermostat starts slipping already. This tiny puddle is officially the last water left anywhere. No pressure. Inside it, a few tiny shrimp are still swimming, entirely unaware of the scale of the problem. That's the whole species, really, us included, mostly unaware of the scale of the problem. So no, this was never really a question about draining the ocean at all. It was a question about how many of your assumptions actually depend on something invisible. Air you don't think about, rain you expect, heat you assume will stay in range. All three of those assumptions run through one basin of salt water you've never seen the bottom of. You are right now breathing air that a plankton cell made for you this morning. That is not poetry. That is a documented, measured fact about your last breath. So the next time someone calls the ocean just scenery, you now know better. It is not the view, it is the machinery running underneath everything you call normal. We spent this whole video imagining it gone. You don't actually have to imagine hard. The gap between those two pictures is thinner than most of us like to think. You're an ape who evolved to worry about lions. Maybe worry about the tide instead. That's why the ocean stays. Same channel, same ape. Next impossible question next week.